This is Orlando Wilson, and what I want to talk about in this video is something which is very much glamorized in the private investigation, close protection world. But in reality is something which is complicated, and if you get involved in, can be problematic, not just for you, but for everybody involved if it's not outright illegal. And that's child recovery, domestic child recovery. And this is where an estranged parent will take a child, go to a different location, go to a different country, and the parent that has custody in their own country will try and get the child back. The reality of it is, if you try and get a child back from another country, even if the parent has custody in their own country, you could be done for kidnapping. It's illegal. So let me clarify this a little bit. One case comes to mind, or one incident comes to mind, where I was approached when I was in the US by somebody I knew, a child recovery job in the Caribbean. And I said, okay, I'll talk to the people involved. Why? I'm always interested, and if I see an opportunity for business, I'll take it. I like to make money. This person put me on a group call with a couple of other guys, and they were telling me all about this job, about how this woman had their child taken to an island in the Caribbean. They wanted them back, and they're asking me about, can we do rescues, can we do this, the usual gung-ho BS. When I started questioning them back, my first question was, okay, do you know the lady actually has custody for the kid? Have you seen the paperwork? And they didn't. I take it this lady had walked into their office and started spouting off about how her ex-husband from the Caribbean had taken the kid back to the Caribbean. So instead of these investigators doing their job properly, and the first thing you do with any type of repossession is you need to confirm that the person that wants the item, asset, child repossessed actually has ownership. And again, once I bounced these questions off these guys, they'd never even checked to see if the woman actually had custody for the kid in the US. They had no paperwork, nothing. So again, this is another one where inexperienced private investigators are approached by somebody and all they're thinking is, wow, this is an exciting job. Wow, we're going to make lots of money, instead of looking at the realities and saying, okay, if we're going to do this, how can we make money? Is it legal? And who owns the asset? Who has custody of the kid? Reminds me of another job I had a sniff of quite a few years ago, of repossessing assets in another country. And again, this was for a US client. And they had, the assets were clearly theirs. They were shipped into another country, heavy work machinery. And once it got to the other country, the people there was like, okay, we're not paying for it. We're keeping it. They asked me, the client asked me if I could get it back. And at the time, the question, it was like, well, we can take a look at it. And they had all the papers for ownership in the US. What they didn't tell me, which we found out at a later time, was there'd been a court case in the country where the machinery was, and the court case had gone against the US client. So in that country, that machinery was not theirs. It was to the person that didn't pay them. So they'd lost the court case. So in reality, they never had ownership. They had papers for ownership in the US, but they didn't have papers for ownership in that country. If I'd gone to that country and tried to repossess that equipment, that could be classed as I was trying to steal that equipment in that country. So this is where, be it machinery, any type of asset, be it a child, you need to make sure you know who has custody. Now, another case that comes to mind, I was approached by a guy who had a 100% legal custody of a child in the US. And he sent me all the paperwork. He wasted all the paper on my fax machine. 100% custody of the kid in US. He had a criminal case against his ex-wife, his ex-partner. Too much paperwork. But the ex-partner, on a visit, had managed to get the kid to the airport and flew them into Europe, a Western European country. So the father done what most fathers would do. He flew to that European country and tried to take the kid back. He managed to find the kid, pick the kid up from, I think, the grandmother, and was heading back to the airport when he was stopped by the police. The grandmother had reported that he'd kidnapped the kid. The police in that country, being a Western European country, him being an American, were understanding. They weren't happy, but they were understanding. And they informed him that his ex-partner had filed legal papers in their country for custody of the kid. Even though he had custody of the kid in the US, who got the custody in that country was down to the courts of that country. They gave him a slap on the wrist. Please don't do it again. Do everything legally. Now go back to America. Now this guy contacted me saying, could we do anything about this? And I said to him, it's like, there's nothing we can really do about it because there's an active court case going on in that country for the custody of that child. The mother was wise and she was doing everything properly, even though she took the kid from the US. So this is where, in those type of cases, it's down to the lawyers, the embassies, etc., to try and sort out the mess. This woman in the last case was, she was a little bit wise. She knew what she's doing. She planned things out. She took the kid, she ran. As soon as she hit that European country, she filed papers for the custody of that kid. So that guy was really screwed. If he could get the kid back to the US, then I'm sure the kid would be safe, etc. He would have custody of the kid, but it's getting the kid back to the US. Now think about it from this perspective. If I assisted that gentleman in getting that kid back, we got the kid back to the US, no problems. If we got the kid back to the US, no problems. If he wasn't stopped en route and arrested en route for kidnapping, that kid, let's say, was back in the US with the father. The authorities of the country where the kid was taken from its mother wouldn't be too happy. Would they press charges? Would they try to extradite the father? Maybe, but I doubt if it would work. The kid? No, it wouldn't work. The private investigator or security people that went and kidnapped the kid for the father, would you have issues? Would they have issues? Yeah, you would have issues. You'd most probably be looking at being extradited back to that country for kidnapping. Another example, a big example, was I think the Australian TV company program 60 Minutes had big issues in the Lebanon. Google that case and you can see they went there to do a child recovery and everybody ended up in jail. So the child recovery side of the close protection, what's more private investigations business, is something which is very much glamorized, but in reality is out and out illegal in most places. So you have to be very careful. I know everybody wants to make money. It's exciting to have this type of thing come on your desk, but in reality, getting involved in such things can end you up in a lot of trouble, and you don't want to end up in a third world jail somewhere in a third world country because you've gone to repossess a child, and the whole operation just turned into a big mess. So be very, very careful. Okay, I've got a lot more of these videos and stories, podcasts going up. Follow us along on social media. We're up on SoundCloud as well as YouTube and everything else. So follow us along on social media. And again, if you're connected with me on social media, if you've got any questions, please feel free to reach out. And when I've got time, I'll answer them. Also, I've got an array of books on Amazon to do with security, investigations, close protections, etc. So be good, stay safe, stay out of trouble. And again, a job might look lucrative, but as I say in other videos, always be aware of the consequences. Because again, you can end up getting yourself into a lot of trouble.